text really till towards the end, right?
I'm gonna flash up my number here in
Okay.
about 5 minutes,
Sounds good.
because we're gonna talk about phase two.
Good afternoon, Cedarfield family. I hope everyone is doing well on this fine July 1st. Hard to believe it's July 1st. Thank you for arranging your schedule to be with us here for the next probably no more than 60 minutes. To the team members and for the families that are listening tonight, thank you for taking time away from your family to listen to some information about Cedarfield. The format for today, July 1st, is very simple. You have yours truly here, and Margaret will be here for our Good News Thursday segment and some spiritual words of well-being. So I'm going to kick us off here with Cedarfield Forward, our three-phased plan. We have about 9 different tidbits of information to share here for the next 15-20 minutes. And the first really has to do with an overview of COVID-19, real brief overview. I'm sure many of you have been following the news here over the last week about the state of COVID-19 around the country and the world. More specifically, here in Virginia, to give you a little most current news as of this morning from the Virginia Department of Health. So, Virginia right now is not on the list of 36 states, as you probably have heard through the news this morning about states that have spikes in the number of cases and the number of positive reports. We fortunately aren't on that list. However, over the last 4 days, the Commonwealth has experienced a plateau, especially here in the city of Richmond and in Rico County. We have been, our 7-day average, if that metric means anything to you, hopefully it does to everybody, that 7-day average has been trending down for the Commonwealth for quite some time now. However, over the last 4 days, that number has plateaued again here in the city of Richmond and in Rico County. So it is giving us pause right now to question why that plateau is actually happening. It's a 4-day plateau, and we think primarily due to the number of tests that are being conducted, and that's the same as in those other 36 states that have seen a surge or a spike or even a mild increase in cases, where we are now starting to see the results of this mass testing. And so the good news in that is, if you have been tracking as much information as I have through different media outlets or reading things online, is that there is significant evidence now that shows the severity of the cases. So many of these COVID-19 cases that are popping up are as mild or even less than that of the seasonal flu. When you talk about the load within the infectious load that is present within some of these cases. So the good news is we're seeing more mild cases, and thank God to all of the counties and the states, particularly the Commonwealth of Virginia, who keeps pushing providers and doctors to report out different demographic information. So we're not just here in the States, unlike many other states, where we are reporting a lot of the demographic information. And so one of the unique things about the Commonwealth of Virginia, when you look at the Hispanic demographic, the number of tests have increased by almost 34%, but when you look at the positivity rate of that same population, it's down to 7. And so, all that to say, the good news is there's a lot of evidence and research right now and science behind the fact that while the number of cases are increasing, also the number of mild cases are also increasing. So the other further good news is at Cedarfield. Currently at Cedarfield, we have no known cases of COVID-19 in independent living, in our memory support area, in our assisted living, or in our health center. We have no known cases with either residents or team members, which gives us confidence to move into phase 2 here within independent living. Effective today, so that's all great news. So that's a little, if anybody needs more statistics that Cedarfield administration has available to us, that we utilize primarily and gain those statistics from the Virginia Department of Health, our Henrico District local folks. Feel free to call down to the administration. I know a lot of times we get on these live streams and we report out a lot of the statistics that are happening. We receive a lot of comment that the statistics we're hearing all the statistics all the time through the nose. Can we maybe skip over the numbers? So if anybody wants that data, please feel free to stop down or email me, and we'll get you that information as a backup to this conversation here in the first 5 minutes. So everybody should have received on Monday a memo and a phase 2 plan. If you want to just go retrieve that plan real quick, or I'll just wait here a couple of seconds. Hopefully, Eddie, I know everybody has this plan sitting on their coffee table right in front of their couch, which is right in front of the TV. So it shouldn't be a far reach to reach for this phase 2. I just thought it would be valuable time here over the next 10 minutes just to review some of the changes from phase 1 to phase 2. For those of you that don't know, Cedarfield in independent living is moving into what we call phase 2, effective today, which is outlined in this document. We are not moving into phase 2 within assisted living and the health center, which I will get into in a few minutes about where we're at with a 3-phase plan for the licensed portion of our community. Does everybody have their plan in front of them? Okay, great. So phase 2, I'm on page 1 at the top, talks primarily about some of the really important points to either stay within phase 2 or hopefully journey through to phase 3, talking about safer at home. We are in a place where we're having social gatherings of no more than 10 people. And the reason for that listed right there is because most space cannot accommodate 25 people. So we're in a phase at this point, phase 2, where we are encouraging if the space will allow for 25 to meet. And the only space that can happen if we truly comport to physical distancing guidelines is right here in this fellowship hall where we can actually fit 25 people. So that's why we listed gatherings of no more than 10, because most other space in Cedarfield cannot accommodate more than 10 people if we are socially distant. We're continuing, I'm going to get into the 3 W's, a new term for everybody, the 3 W's, the trifecta, talking about masks and hand washing and being socially distant. If you would be so kind, if you get into some common space, Sharon and the team have provided quaternarium bottles. That's the product inside these spray bottles. When you're in certain amenity space, common space, you will see paper towels and cloth rags and a squirt bottle. Inside of that bottle is a product called quaternarium. If you're sitting down, we just please ask you to sanitize your space. That quaternarium, the resting time for that agent to stay on the surface is just 15 seconds. It's all that product has to stay in order to kill the virus. So please, like I said, if you're going to the common space areas, if you could just please take care of your space before you leave. No change with the library. Renee did a great job. If you see Renee or happen to think of her over the next couple of days, if you could call. Right now she's actually on vacation, so a couple of voicemails from y'all would be well received from her on Monday. She has spent a significant amount of time putting this document together and trying to make it as user-friendly as possible for a large variety of the audience that we have. So she thought it'd be best to highlight in red where you see no change from phase 1, but yet where there are changes, highlight that as well to help guide the eye to where things are different. So other than that, on page 1, there really is no other differences. Page 2, there was a lot of energy around the campus about dry cleaners. I know there still is, that we've only allowed 1 on the property. Right now we are, in this particular phase, are allowing that one particular dry cleaner to come on the property. And the particular reason for that, again, we're not in a phase where we're opening up the entire campus to all different vendors and the variety of vendors that were once here. We're trying to really limit the number of people who are on the property. So that's really the reason why that one dry cleaner is listed. Many people have called Allison this week, who's filled in a little bit for Renee, and talked about handcraft dry cleaners. So we're going to investigate their protocols and their guidelines this week and see if we might be able to add them to the list here. Residents leaving the community, there is really no change from phase 1. That 14-day quarantine list has stayed the same, which I'm going to talk in a little bit about the residents and team members who are not telling us about any of these events, and that's going to go on our dashboard, and so more to come about that in a second. There's no changes in the wellness clinic. Meeting space, there is a change from phase 1. We're particularly here in the fellowship hall, if an event of 25 or less can be had and you need the space, the fellowship hall is available for that room booking. On page 3, you can see a lot of the areas in there that there's 4 different areas that have changed from phase 1. Louisa Rucker and the Flower Committee are having 2 or more people in their space to help with arrangements. Housekeeping, which is probably the biggest one on this particular page, has resumed normal schedule and services. And that last item under ancillary services, that the shopping shuttle has changed to 1 day a week, and a sign-up is actually required. On page 4, the other change related to transportation is the family member supply shutoff or drop-off program has changed, and that we are only picking up supplies for residents who live in memory support, assisted living, and or the health center on Fridays between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock. Everything else on that page has not changed. And then on page 5, the biggest change has to do, well, there's 2 big changes on page 5. One is we're starting to open up the Prima area, the Cedar Grill, and Pub 2300, starting next week. I know that, thank you, again, just a thank you to all the residents who helped provide a lot of that data. Last week, we took the time to do all those surveys where the folks at all the call centers were asking you all a series of questions. That data has been invaluable to us in creating what we will know as a dining program starting next week. And then the wellness and leisure section on page 5, talking about some of those wellness building hours are back to a normal schedule. So that is and then the last page, many residents and families are asking about floral arrangements, and is there a way that we can work with a florist shop in making sure that they have safe guidelines and protocols so that when these arrangements get to Cedarfield, that we can be rest assured that somebody practiced good guidelines. So we're trying to identify one florist, and we should probably know by the end of the week the name of that florist and the phone number, so that residents and families can call that particular florist, and that florist will provide arrangements to the campus for the next few months. So that's a little bit of an overview of what Phase 2 is for independent living. If anybody has any questions about Phase 2, certainly feel free to call the department directors. Everyone is very well versed in this plan, and they should have answers to all of your questions. If you can't get a hold of somebody, feel free to contact administration. Allison and I are holding the fort down while Renee's on vacation this week, and we'll be glad to answer any of your questions. One thing that Ann Hopper wanted to, those of you who don't know Ann Hopper, Ann is the registered nurse in the wellness clinic. She did want to make reference to a clarity point about social appointments versus medical appointments. So we have seen an uptick in families arriving at the property, and they are not on an approved list at the gatehouse, which has caused some significant backup at that gatehouse. So this is a public service announcement for the residents and for families that are listening tonight. If you have a need to pick up a resident who does not have a car here at the property, otherwise known as what we call as a social appointment, please call the administration office. Allison and I are covering for Renee this week, and we will get you on the list, and we provide that list to the gatehouse. So if you have somebody that wants to pick you up, take you to dinner, please call down, give us 24-hour notice, and we'll get you on the list. Different than a medical appointment. If you have a medical appointment and you need someone's coming to pick you up for that medical appointment, we would ask that you call Ann Hopper, because she and Bonnie in the clinic are keeping track of another detailed list to provide, again, the gatehouse, to help the gatehouse be more manageable. So that's the difference between the two. Hopefully that puts a little color to that specific issue. If you have any other questions about how to get your loved one on campus to provide transportation for you, please feel free to call down to the administration office. Again, this is our dashboard. This is what Cedarfield is using to gauge where we're at with our phases and how we might be able to journey into a new phase, and or thinking about retreating back to a prior phase. We're looking at the COVID-19 positivity rates at Cedarfield. Again, there are no known cases of COVID right now at Cedarfield. We are looking at our surveillance tools, which track signs and symptoms of folks at the community. We're tracking people who are under quarantine for the list that's listed on page 2. We are looking at our contact trace list and utilizing that as a benchmark. We are utilizing the Virginia Department of Health guidelines, which I'm going to get a little bit more in depth with here in a few slides. And then lastly, this new metric that we're calling confirmed or corroborated information. So we have seen an uptick in people, residents and team members, not so much more team members, but more so with residents. We've seen an uptick in people who are not either fully disclosing to us that they are out of state, or that they traveled by airplane, or even that they left the country, that they went to the hospital voluntarily. We have seen an uptick in that number, or simply people are forgetting to tell us. So I just want to make reference to folks that that number still goes on our metrics to determine how quickly we should be guiding into a particular phase. So if we can confirm that information, we're actually not ignoring the fact that someone didn't come to administration to tell us that they're in New York City visiting the Statue of Liberty. And we're not ignoring that information. We're actually gathering that information, and we're keeping tabs on it to make sure that we have a healthy perspective of people who might be in some hot zones around the country, and or are meeting our definition of being quarantined, that need to be quarantined for good reason, of why the Department of Health is actually helping us make that definition for Cedarfield. So, there's no such thing as a snitch at Cedarfield. All this information is good information, it's good intel coming in, and we use the information to make sure whether or not we are making a smart decision moving into a particular phase or not. If anybody has any questions about phase 2 that you would like us to address right now in the next half hour, Allison is here with us, manning the phones, so to speak, and if you want to text any questions, we'll address your questions here as they come in. Eddie, can you zoom in on this, please? COVID-19 by the numbers. I know many residents are interested in these particular numbers. To date, as of this morning, there are 69 residents that have been tested over the last 18 weeks. 10 of those residents have tested positive, and 96 team members have been tested over the last 18 weeks, and 12 team members have tested positive for COVID-19. So I just want to talk a little bit about the trifecta, the 3 W's. There is I'm constantly reading the reports and the research that's coming out, and I came across just something that really made sense to me. If anybody would like a copy and or the link to what I'm about to talk about, please feel free to call the administration suite after this live stream. I'll get you the link and or a copy to this article. But the article talked a lot about the reason behind wearing the mask, and there's a lot of scientific, data-driven evidence about why the mask is so particularly important. And at the end of this article, it talked a lot about that the mask isn't really the only reason, isn't really the only particular, can you hit the side of the volume? There you go. The mask isn't the one item that really protects everybody. It's the trifecta that really helps the situation. So the trifecta, we all know the trifecta. The first W is actually wearing the mask to protect the person in front of you. That's the whole reason for wearing the mask, is to protect people around you. The second W is washing your hands frequently or sanitizing them. Hopefully everybody has a healthy dose of hand sanitizer in their car or in their apartment, in their home. And we should be washing our hands probably every half hour would be a good benchmark. And then the third W is watching your distance. We keep talking. At first, in March, we talked about social distancing. That term migrated into physical distancing. And now we're talking about watching your distance. And in this article we're referencing, it talks about why a mask is so important, particularly for sneezes and droplets that may be entering the air. So I know everybody has COVID-19 fatigue, but I'm constantly looking for ways to just reinvent or support the information and just keep it out in front of us so we're not taking things for granted. I was reading a report over the weekend about 173 different trials that are going on right now. In fact, I think 60 Minutes did a little segment on it on Sunday. And the word is not encouraging right now about the hope that we can have a vaccine anytime soon, and then be able to mass produce that vaccine. So keeping the trifecta out in front of us is just super, super important. The families that are listening tonight, especially the families that have a loved one living in assisted living, memory support, and or the health center, the residents that are listening to this live stream right now, or maybe even listening to the video tonight that live in one of these areas. This next little segment is for you, as some of you, this may be the second or third time you're hearing the information, and probably for many it might be the first. So the Virginia Department of Health So it's been out in the public for the last 10 days, and it's called a Point Prevalence Survey. So the VDH, Virginia Department of Health, is requiring at this point all long-term care settings to go through a point prevalence survey. And then 7 days after, we have to test everyone that we tested in this first point prevalence survey again. So what does that mean for Cedarfield? On July 9th, which is next Thursday, we will have a point prevalence survey that it will be conducted by the Virginia Department of Health and supported by the National Guard. For those of you that remember the one we had here in April, it will be a similar type of event, although the scope is expanded. The Department of Health wants us to have 2 tests 7 days apart from one another, and they're asking us to test every resident in the long-term care setting and every team member who works in that setting as well. And so for Cedarfield, that equates to 325 people that we will be testing that either live and or work in our memory support area, our assisted living, and or our health center. We will conduct that point prevalence survey next Thursday. We have a communication plan. This is the beginning of it, that is alive and well. The neighborhood leaders and the clinical leaders, along with administration, will be contacting the residents here in the next couple of days to let them know that this point prevalence survey will be conducted next Thursday. We are also, the team members that are listening, either live here now or listening to the video tonight, we will be contacting the 163 team members that need to be involved in this point prevalence survey test and the follow-up test the following week here in the next couple of days via telephone, an email, and we have postings all around the community. And so the importance of this point prevalence survey is the Virginia Department of Health does not want us to move into our phase 1 in the licensed areas until we have conducted this point prevalence survey and a second test 7 days from July 9th. So on July 16th, 13th, we're going to have a second test, and we will retest those 325 people, and that, along with some other parameters, will allow us to move into phase 1 in the licensed areas unless we have a COVID-19 case. If we have a COVID-19 case in one of those areas, then that specific area cannot move into phase 1 until we are 14 days free of a COVID-19 case. And so, if, knock on wood, let's just say one of the, well, I'm not even going to finish it now, but knock on wood. If one of the licensed areas has a COVID-19 case, then we have to test weekly until we're COVID 14 days free of that case in order for that area to go back into phase 1. Otherwise, the other 4 neighborhoods can move into a 3-phase plan. So, that's a lot of information. What does that really mean? So we keep talking about a 3-phase plan. We actually have three 3-phase plan for the health center, and we have a 3-phase plan for assisted living. And so we're managing these 3 plans moving into the month of July. Right now, the licensed areas are not permitted to move into phase 1 because we have not conducted this point prevalence survey yet, nor have we done a second test. So that is the main metric that we have to employ before we go into phase 1 over the licensed areas. Have I been clear to those of you that are looking, sitting here? It's a lot of information. It's a lot of moving parts and pieces. If anybody has any questions, particularly the residents who are listening here today that might live in assisted living and or up in the health center, or even the families that are listening tonight, please reach out to the neighborhood leaders, the clinical leaders of your neighborhood, the administration of all 5 of those neighborhoods, Matt Dameron or Melissa Seilers. They can all answer your questions. It's a lot of information, but I think we're all lockstep in what the plan is here moving forward in the next 2 weeks. So, So that's a little bit more about next steps here in the licensed areas. Little picture for the families. We have upgraded our visitation vistas. This is a little picture that is currently out on the south side of the health center, underneath roof with a fan. I think there's water out there now. The team has done a really great job of setting up these 3 visitation vistas. So if you're a family that are listening tonight, please reach out to the neighborhood that your loved one lives in, and the leadership of that neighborhood will help guide you to how to schedule a visitation with your loved one. What time is it? 3:40? Okay. So I just want to talk a little bit about the Heroes campaign. So on Monday, we distributed a flyer inviting residents and families and team members, other team members at the Pinnacle Living Office to donate to a special fund that we have set up for Cedarfield team members. And it's called the Heroes Fund. The idea behind this program started because there were so many residents and family members asking what could they do to thank team members for all of their work over these last couple of months. So residents and team members were trying to do things to thank employees, like delivering meals or sending in pizza to the community and all kinds of other little treats. And so the Heroes Fund was designed as a very equitable way to celebrate all team members and maybe do some appreciation events and incentives for the entire team. So no direct cash will be paid to them from the Heroes Fund. The purpose of the fund is to thank the team through a series of maybe events or small gifts that would reach across all the departments and all the different levels. The goal is, in some small way, to show appreciation and respect for the outstanding job that they have done under incredibly difficult circumstances. I know many of you see on the news a celebratory have frontline staff right here in the thick of it that have been in the thick of it since March. And regardless of where they work in the community, we want to celebrate all the residents, or all the team members. The gift is tax deductible because we're a non-for-profit 501c3, and to clarify that the collection of the residents that provide this money to the team members we don't think this will really compete with the holiday gift at the end of the year. Many people who have asked for something to do now have also commented that this is not to be in competition with the year-end bonus. So we have been seeking different ways that we could use this particular fund. All kinds of things, from a huge party to different smaller events, food trucks, different tickets that we might be able to give out. We've been talking about maybe the employee entrance, how maybe it's even jazz up that employee entrance a little bit. As is with all opportunity, this is absolutely voluntary. We invite you to participate in supporting this effort. Again, this is not to say that we don't, that the management of Cedarfield doesn't take into account morale boosting events or other appreciation events throughout the year. We are not asking residents to subsidize that. This is, again, this whole initiative was born out of families and residents asking, what can we do right now to put a layer of icing on the cake for people and just to thank them. So hopefully that puts a little color commentary to maybe some of the negativity that's been driving around the campus. As an example of one of the things that we are doing for the staff, I don't know if anyone has had a chance of having a Carytown burger, but a Carytown burger food truck is actually coming on July 7th, and the entire staff can feel free to participate in that event as a way that one small way that the Cedarfield management is thanking all the staff here for all the hard work that they do. So hopefully that's, like I said, puts a little bit of explanation to our Heroes Fund. To donate, just please drop off your envelope to the business office during the month of July. At the end of the month, we will share with you what the families and the residents, myself, and any other person who wants to contribute to the fund have raised, and what we intend to use the money for, and to recognize the entire team here at Cedarfield. So thank you for your consideration in donating to this Heroes Fund. Okay, one more segment for me about rehab services. So right now we have the honor and the privilege of partnering with Health Pro Heritage. Eddie, can you zoom in on this slide here real quick? And the next 3 slides, actually. So this is the Cedarfield trend of the number of people who have participated in PT, OT, and speech over the last few months, participating with Health Pro Heritage. You can see in January, we started out the year with 140 people utilizing the 3 domains of service, and then that stayed relatively constant through March, and then we took a little dip for obvious reasons throughout March, April, and May, and then June started to climb back up to, right now we're at 134. So I want to thank, first of all, I just want to thank the residents, because we've been making a huge push over the last couple of weeks about the importance of physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy some of the outcomes. So this slide shows the outcomes from October, November, December of last year, and then those same benchmarks from January through May. The columns on the left show the scores of people at when they first were evaluated into the program, and then all these columns to the right, the gray columns, are the columns of the outcome after they were discharged from service. So on this particular occupational therapy slide, we're talking about the dining experience, lower body dressing, the bathroom experience, the upper body dressing, and outcomes. You can see all of these columns have increased as an example of the benefit of the interventions that the therapists were working with the residents. The interesting thing for me is that, maybe you can't really see it on this slide, but when you look at the outcomes January through May, the outcomes are actually greater. So, as one would imagine, because of the social isolation, maybe there's residents that are out there that have a decline in function, but the scores are even higher. So the therapy team has been able to even help the same baseline of residents and help them get to a better starting point, a better foundation. So this is the OT side. The physical therapy outcomes are the same. You can see here we're talking about taking, for some folks that have gone through some very significant catastrophic events, this first column talks about just taking a simple 4 steps compared to this column over here where we're talking about walking at least 50 feet. And you can see back in the fourth quarter of last year, the outcomes, almost a point difference. And then over here, because of perhaps maybe, again, the social isolation, you can see the intake numbers are actually higher, and that makes sense to me over these last 4 months. But then the outcome measured when the resident was discharged from the therapy, that benchmark number is actually higher than in the fourth quarter, which shows to me that the residents are fully engaged in the therapeutic interventions. And when they're working with their therapist over this last quarter, their foundation is actually stronger than they were in the fourth quarter compared to today, thanks to the therapy department. So I just share this with you because small things matter right now because of the isolation that's happening. And if you have any reason to think that you might need PT, OT, or speech, please reach out to the Health Pro Heritage team. If you have any questions, you can also reach out to your physician. And then lastly, you can absolutely feel free to reach out to the wellness clinic. Those are your 3 avenues to reach out in order to get access into the rehab services department. They're a trusted partner, and now more than ever, their services are just critical. So please take advantage of this partner that we have here. Take advantage of the PT, OT, and speech. One of the things that opened up in phase 2, the therapist can either come to your apartment, or we're opening up the outpatient therapy gym here on the 3rd floor. They have a socially distant plan, so they can actually see residents now in that space and then utilize the equipment to augment the therapy interventions. Rumor control. I put rumor control on here. Oh, rumor control. Can you all help me with if you could all promise to help me with rumor control. So over the last 5 years, Cedarfield, our mission is to enrich life's journey. And because people live at a retirement community like Cedarfield,
I think he's
and
right.
people are in their last third of life, their last quarter of their life, we go through a very sacred event with people, where people, they pass, because they live here, they pass away. People leave us here and go on to their Creator. That's just inevitable. Some people think that's very sad. I happen to think it's probably one of the highest honors that the staff have and the residents have, to live that moment with the residents, that we're with them and the family. All that to be said is, typically, on average over the last 5 years, there's approximately 45 to 50 people every year that leave us and go on to their Creator. This year has been no different. We've seen right about 45 over this time last year compared to May of 2019, May of 2018. The numbers are relatively the same. So what's the rumor? The rumor around the community is that every time somebody hears of somebody passing away, it's because of COVID-19. And so people are automatically assuming that that's the reason why they passed away. So the rumor control is, please, there are many reasons why people pass away. And that information, as I've said since the very beginning, is a private matter between the family and or the spouse. If we could all just please pledge to stop telling people that every time we hear of a death, it's automatically because of COVID-19. I can assure you that that is not the case. And management is not covering up the fact that the contrary to that. So please help me, help you control this rumor. I would be most grateful. One more thing about recruitment and retention. I am authoring a memo here coming out in the next couple of weeks in concert with the collective wisdom from the executive team here. And we're going to explain the difficulties of recruitment and retention in senior living in a June, July 2020 world. It's not easy to find good people that want to work in and around people 65 years of age and better and retain them given this new normal that we're in. It's not an easy task. Recruitment and retention has always been difficult in our effort to employ people to work in our community, and now more than ever, it is a tall task. It's probably one of two things that keep me up at night, is finding good people. And so there are many reasons why people continue to work here. There are many reasons why people choose to leave employment in Cedarfield. And we're going to, like I said, we're going to author a memo here in the next couple of days to give folks a little bit more information about the reality of Cedarfield and what we're trying to manage through in order to retain and recruit the best next Wednesday about that memo and talk a little bit more about the content in it. Little construction update, D-Wing. We are working with our environmental hygienist to finalize any other areas in that the 8 apartments that were affected almost 3 weeks ago, to make sure that we've captured every square inch of those affected 8 areas and the elevator in conjunction with the hallways. And due in 2 days here is a scope of work, the cost of it, and more importantly, the time frame to put it all back together. So hopefully next Wednesday, I will have more detail about the timing of when we hope to put this building, these 8 apartments back together and start to move people in on those 2 floors. I also hope to have information next week about maybe when we can accelerate opening the 4th floor before we actually move through all these renovations, and maybe start to move people in on that 4th floor as well. So little tidbits about D-Wing. The pot dredging project has stalled temporarily because the county wants us to do a little bit more work around the east side of the pond, where the dam where the water flows back down through the water streams. So we're waiting word from them. And then in addition to that, we're waiting for our current contractor, Harbor's Edge, to help us with understanding when they're putting us on the schedule to lower the brush in front of the clubhouse. We've asked, they've given us a price, we're okay with their price, and we're trying to get on their schedule to lower that brush. The garden beds are, those of you that have not walked behind the wellness building, the garden beds are have been being installed since last Friday. They poured the garden house concrete pad last week, and that garden house will be delivered this Friday. So things seem to be progressing. So thank you to Jack and to Beth. And the gardening committee has put a significant amount of time into planning these areas. So more to come about that next week. The railings that are on the steps outside the south side of the wellness building are being fabricated, and we do not have a delivery time of that yet, but we know that our contractor is fabricating that metal and that railing. So hopefully next week I'll have a date of when those railings will be installed. The other thing that we are on the list for a contractor to replace the concrete between B-Wing and C-Wing. So hopefully again, next Wednesday I'll have some more information about an exact date when that will take place. Okay, I don't have any questions coming? No questions? Not at all. Is that good news? Yeah, we'll take that as good news. Good news. No questions that have come in. If anybody has any questions as a result of the last 60 minutes, feel free to contact the department directors. Feel free to contact neighborhood leaders or clinical leaders, and we will try to answer all of your questions in a very timely manner. So next up is Margaret. Margaret is here for some words of spiritual well-being and our good news segment.
Oh, I turned it off.
Thanks, Michael. Today I have a poem that has been authored by Sylvia courage to have doubts. It takes strength to fit in. It takes courage to stand out. It takes strength to share a friend's pain. It takes courage to feel your own pain. It takes strength to hide your own pain. It takes courage to show it and deal with it. It takes strength to stand guard. It takes courage to let down your guard. It takes strength to conquer. It takes courage to surrender. It takes strength to endure abuse. It takes courage to stop it. It takes strength to stand alone. It takes courage to lean on a friend. It takes strength to love. It takes courage to be loved. It takes strength to survive. It takes courage to live. And that was authored by Sylvia Kelly. And I think we have good news. Oh, there it is. This beautiful young lady is Madison Lee. She recently graduated from Hilsey Godwin High School on June the 9th. And is there another picture? There we go. This is what graduation during a global pandemic looks like. A virtual ceremony, a ride around the Richmond racetrack with a decorated vehicle to the blaring of pomp and circumstance over a loudspeaker, cheered on by school faculty and administrators, and of course the checkered flag at the finish line. Madison will attend James Madison University in the fall, and this was submitted by a proud grandmother, resident Nancy Lee. We wish her well.